Microplastics are literally destroying our gut health, our gut microbiome, and causing havoc throughout our digestive system and literally throughout our body. And most people don't even know about it. In fact, the research is really only burgeoned in the last 2 to 3 years, but now there's a couple of thousand papers on it highlighting that these are causing a real problem, and I'm going to show you some of the evidence there. But these microplastics are little bits of plastic that you find in everything, all the different types of polypropylene, polyethylene, phthalates, BPA, BPB. Everyone says, BPA free, but then it's got BP and all these other plastics, and they're still full of plastic. And all these little particles are breaking off these bits of plastic and getting into your air, into the dust, into the food, into our drinks and everything we're doing. Polystyrene, PVC, and we get them from literally being inundated in the 21st century with plastic. Everything's in plastic now, which is great. It has its fantastic benefits, but also has its downfall. And these downfalls are the contamination. So we get it in our packaging, in our wrapping, in our storage of our food. Every time they're wrapped up in plastic, and these plastic little bits break off and get into the food. Now, we also have lots of food contaminants. So dairy is well known for microplastics. Meat is well established as a major source of microplastics because it passes through the food chain, literally. Then you get it in your cooking, and my major concern here is in microwaves, not microwave ovens as such, but putting plastic in microwaves. Microwave safe means that it's not going to break down quickly in the microwave. It's not safe for you because all these microparticles, all these microplastics break off and start to get into the food. And if you're cooking in a microwave, you're speeding up the breakdown of these products. Heating it up in any way, you're speeding up the breakdown, and there's more and more going in. Hundreds of times more of these microplastics going in when you microwave. Now, I should tell you that we first came across microplastics in the dust of homes about 35 years ago. So it's something we have been worried about and thinking about for a long time, and mentioned some in our really, really early research. But now it's all about the microplastics and gut. And so we've got it in the microwave. Brewing, one of my pet hates now is all the tea bags. They give you expensive tea bags, which are these triangle shaped ones. They look like perforated little bits of plastic, and that's exactly what they are. They're plastic. So they've got the skin of plastic rather than in a paper bag. And every time you put that in and you dip it in your tea and you brew it a bit longer, you're going to get more and more of these plastics there. So I tend to carry my own paper tea bags now. How simple. But there's this great supposed innovation in tea. You pay 10 times more for these plastic tea bags to poison you. Something's wrong. And coffee bags as well. And another little pet hate at the moment is cleaning. All these things wrapped up in plastic. These are your dishwashing tabs or something that you put in a dishwasher, and they're all wrapped up in plastic, and they're actually made out of plastic. Lots of little particles in there already, so that every time you're washing, they're broken down. Where do you think the plastic's going to go? It dissolves, yeah, it goes into the water, it goes into the food, it goes into everything there, and it's little bit always stays in the machine and on the plate. You can't avoid it. So why would you want to put these plastic ones in there? You've got to go for safer, really common sense ones. Get rid of the plastic. We're not going to eliminate these microplastics, but what we are going to do is reduce our exposure. And you can reduce your exposure by maybe up to 80% if you just understand some principles. Now, micro, by the way, refers to 1,000th of a millimeter. So it's 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter. A millimeter is about that big, so it's very, very small. That's why they can get in everywhere in our body, and they've been detected in literally throughout the whole digestive, respiratory system, you name it. They've been detected in the placenta, in blood, umbilical cord, literally breast milk, everywhere they get there. So small. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to cut that exposure down. Because what we do know from a general perspective, that they cause major gut problems, but as a general perspective, the research in the last 20 years has shown that they lead to an increase in cancer, cell death and toxicity, reproductive toxicity, neurotoxicity. That's the brain and the what we'd probably call the gut-brain axis now that everyone's aware of. Inflammation and oxidation, which are the cornerstones of chronic illness that we've got now. So they're a little bit in there causing extra inflammation, a little bit extra oxidation, and the great thing is we can reduce some of that. Now, the gut is the focus here, And that's the newest research. All of that research has come out about the ecological environment and our health over the last 20, 30 years. But now the research is all coming out on gut health and these microplastics, the havoc they're causing on gut health. First of all, from physical damage, causing a destruction of the gut lining, your epithelial lining, the one that runs down. It's very, very thin, and it's easily damaged. It's not meant to have little sharp bits of these objects going through all the time and things that don't digest, and it's causing damage all the way down. And we see that. Then you've got, it's also affecting nutrient digestion and absorption and metabolism. So the nutrients you're taking in, and this is only small, but it's an added little small on top of all the other issues. It affects your fat metabolism, amino acids, and amino acids are critical for all of your neurotransmitters, to think, feel, act, behave. All of those things that our mind coordinates and our body coordinates behind the scenes with our mind are coordinated by these neurotransmitters made out of amino acids, and these microplastics are poisoning it. They're stopping the system working like it should. And there are enough things out there already doing that, so we don't need added things on top of it. Then you've got your carbohydrate metabolism. They actually find out it blocks the amylase enzyme, which breaks starch down into the sugars. And you think, that's good, but no, we actually need that to occur. We just don't need to be eating lots of sugars in our diet. But the real critical issue here in terms of the gut is gut dysbiosis. And gut dysbiosis, like I know you know because you've watched so many of my other gut videos in there, gut dysbiosis is when there's an imbalance between the opportunistic ones, the ones that take over, or the nasty ones, and the commensal ones, the ones that we kind of want to increase in number as much as possible. And we're finding that it's decreasing the beneficial species like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. They're the ones you get in yogurts, and you'll get them in your probiotic supplements, so on. And this one, Akkermansia, not a probiotic, but we know that you'd probably consider this one as the anti-metabolic illness probiotic or gut microorganism. So the bifidobacteria is well established for infants as in terms of developing the immune system and priming the immune system and keeping a healthy immune system throughout life. And by the way, a bit of trivia, our bifidobacteria should be really here when we're young, and it goes right down as we age. So what we want to do is make sure, if you want to age healthily, make sure you've got lots and lots of bifidobacteria. And this is killing the good ones there, destroying the Akkermansia, and also at the same time, it's increasing the opportunistic species. These are the ones that if they get a chance, they take over. And as they take over, they poison the gut, and they let toxins get in through the body and cause all types of illnesses, from arthritis to hypertension, all your cardiovascular diseases, increasing cancer rate. So we want to keep these down to a low balanced number, and it increases ones like Staphylococcus, Clostridia, which is well established as one of the major ones that contributes to diarrhea. Now, there are many types, but what we want to do is just keep all of them down and keep them in balance, and E. coli, of course. So we want to keep these opportunistic species down. Now, this is just a summary. The studies now show that there are big groups of these bacteria that are wiped out almost totally. The lactobacillus, by the way, is really devastated by these microplastics, and the opportunistic ones tend to grow quite flourish, literally flourish as a result. And so this dysbiosis created here leads to leaky gut. And the research on leaky gut over the last 30 years is phenomenal in terms of, again, all of the potential diseases that it's a part of contributing to. And what we know specifically in the last 2 to 3 years, though, this is just the research on gut damage caused by the microplastics, we show that there's an increase in chronic immune disorders. Now, these are what you probably consider as an increase in viral and infection rates, an increase in autoimmune, and an increase in all those things that where you can't look after your health well enough anymore. And we see that across the board in the last 20 or 30 years, increase in all these diseases. So the question is, are these microplastics contributing to it? Highly likely they are. And so what we want to do is just reduce our exposure. We're never going to get to zero. We're just going to reduce it, and you can reduce it and repair some of it, probably by about 80%, which is great. Then you've got mental health. The studies on microplastics in rats and so that it increases anxiety and erratic behavior in mice and rats as a result of being exposed to fairly normal levels of these microplastics. And of course, it plays havoc with reproductive health, and the studies primarily at the moment are showing a decrease in sperm count and a decrease in sperm quality as a result of exposure to microplastics. So if you're thinking of having a family, or you know someone is, let's just cut down on some of those plasticky things that we can and get rid of them, reduce our exposure just a little bit. And then also a lot of research coming out on liver damage as well. So recent research is showing that the increase in microplastic is causing liver damage, and liver damage is linked in with a lot of metabolic disorders. And if you've seen my other videos, you can understand, because these microorganisms, good ones over there, are what prevent this, and these ones are often the ones that cause and contribute to this. So the whole thing, what we're trying to do here is understand that these microplastics are a new part of our life for the last 30, 40 years, and what we want to do is reduce them and detoxify. The great news is we can. Amazingly, even though this research is just a few years old, they've now done studies looking at how to detox these microplastics out of the body, how to get them out, get rid of them, how to repair some of that damage that's already been done by them, and how to eliminate them, to bind them and to throw them out one way or another out of the gut so that they stop doing damage. So this is cutting edge information. And overwhelmingly, the research shows that probiotics, the combination of probiotics, various lactobacillus species, and I'll talk a little bit about how many, bifidobacteria, and a mold, a healthy fungi called Saccharomyces, which is a good one in the gut, and they've been shown to help detox. But before I go into specifically on getting rid of the microplastics, it's also important to understand that these probiotics and the positive gut bacteria are involved in detoxing your body constantly. People will often say, how do I detox my body? How do I detox my liver? How do I detox? Well, first, work on the gut, build the gut up. Probiotics and all the other synergistic things I talk about in my videos, watch those so you can understand how to get the real benefits of the probiotics. And what we know already from detox of other things, research over the last 30, 40 years, shows that these bacteria here, typical ones you get in probiotics, and your yogurt, but a lot lesser amounts, they have been shown multiple times to detox heavy metals out of the body. They can't break it down because they don't break down. They're elemental. So you've got copper, lead, mercury, and cadmium, and they're able to bind to them and eliminate them out of the body. So they're able to block some of their toxic signaling that's going on. Mycotoxins, which are mold toxins. If you've been in an exposed house with lots of mold, or you've been exposed to mold, maybe even on a farm or somewhere, then that mold can cause havoc for a long part of your life unless you detox. And when people ask me that, I say fix the gut, work on the gut, the probiotics, and of course my gut detox type programs. We also find that they lower inflammation, lower oxidation, and they also repair the damage that's often been done by these toxic chemicals. So these are typical other ones, but here we're talking about microplastics. And the same bacteria, and fungi in this case, has been shown in multi-strain. And when I talk about multi-strain, the studies have gone from anything from 3 or 4 species, varieties of microorganisms, of the lactobacillus and 1 or 2 bifidobacteria and a Saccharomyces, or any various combinations. There's about 8 or 9 studies I found at the moment, and all of these combinations, but they go up to as many 14 different strains of probiotic bacteria. And we find that these strains decrease the microplastic, they eliminate it, and they degrade it. So it's a win-win. It does whatever it can. So the plastics, fortunately, can be broken down, and we find that the lactobacillus, these 3 microorganisms, are actually able to break it down. Now, we also find that these our microorganisms are susceptible to it, so that's why we have to keep replenishing probiotics and the things that support the probiotics. And the research on this shows that when you detox the gut with these probiotics, the specific outcomes include sperm quality, so an increase in male sperm quality, a decrease in plastic-induced anxiety-related conditions, which I talked about earlier, liver damage. The liver is the first organ directly after the gut where the blood goes straight to, so it helps reverse liver damage and stop that. Kidney damage, spleen damage, improvement in endocrine function, which are your hormones, a lot of these chemicals can actually get in there and start to mimic some of the hormones and play havoc, ladies, havoc with estrogenicity in your body. So one of the first things we want to do is get rid of a lot of these. We also, on a bigger picture, lower inflammation, lower oxidation, they decrease the toxicity signaling. So even if some of the plastics are still in there, they're kind of putting a wet rag on them saying, well, we're not going to let you send so many messages to the body and make us feel so sick and bad and unhealthy and all these conditions. So it decreases the toxicity signaling, and fortunately, it repairs leaky gut. And leaky gut is this condition that leads to all of these metabolic disorders, diabetes, heart attack, stroke, cancers, you name it. All of those health conditions are linked in with leaky gut. And one of the first things that it starts to do with high-dose probiotics, and really it is going to mean how much you can, what probiotics you can use, the amount you can use, but also how you can support it. And one of the best ways of supporting it is with synergy, okay? So making sure you've got some prebiotics and some probiotics in combination, and even now some postbiotics. You better watch the video on postbiotics. And so we've got these to repair leaky gut. Now they've also found there's a couple of studies, about a half a dozen studies, where they've put it in combination with other nutrients. And this is fairly consistent with detoxing, so I will elaborate a little bit further, but they know that green tea extract, EGCG, and lycopene, which is the red you get in tomatoes, particularly when there's a little bit of oil in there. So, and then polyphenols, and these are the things that are the big plant molecules that I'm always talking about that are so important, like curcumin, quercetin, that you get in all of your nutrient-dense plant-based foods. Now, all that in combination, and of course with some prebiotic fibers to stimulate all of this happening at the same time. So the message is, what we want to do is eliminate these getting into our body as much as possible. We might be able to do that 80 or 90%. And then of the 10 or 20% that get in there, we want to detox it. And this is a very simple strategy to detox it. And of course, there'll be a lot more research over the next 4 or 5 years. Make sure you subscribe, tick the button, and share this with your friends.